former economic advisor to President Trump, economist, author, and former public policy writer for the Wall Street Journal, distinguished fellow of economics at Heritage Foundation. He's joining us to discuss his book, Govzilla, How the Relentless Growth of Government is Devouring Our Economy and Our Freedom. We're also live on Clubhouse. We got about 78 people in to ask you live questions. So just type your question in the chat box and we'll go to them. So first, it wasn't in my talking points, but what do you make of the Tucker Carlson leaving Fox, since you're always on Fox?
Well, Josh, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be on your show. Thank you so much. And I think it's a tragedy. I'm a big fan of Tucker's. I don't always agree with everything he says. Who does? But I think he's a incredibly insightful, and popular voice for the conservative movement. And I'm really sorry that this happened. I don't know the inside information about Tucker's emails and things like that. But I do know this, that he is one of the 2 or 3 most prominent voices in the conservative movement, and I consider him a friend. So I'm very disappointed about this outcome. And who knows, maybe we'll see him on the presidential trail.
Wow. Any reason? There's been a lot of speculation. Could it have been the I don't know, maybe you've heard, is it the Dominion settlement? Maybe they said, hey, he has to get out. That's what I think. There's got to be something legal about it. But
yeah, it could be, but we don't know the facts right now, so I don't want to speculate too much. I just will say this: he was the number one guy on on cable TV, and so it was an incredibly popular show. And I said I like to watch Tucker even when I disagreed with him, just because I think he was really provocative and made you think about issues. And sometimes my wife and I would agree with what he said, sometimes we wouldn't. But that's what makes Fox, such an invaluable part of our media.
Yeah, I wonder, I think what's going to happen, Bongino left, Carlson left. I think there's going to be some, I don't know, Daily Wire. I think it's all going to podcasts. I was talking to people because we do a big show on WOR, iHeartRadio, talking to iHeart exec today. They're saying, hey, everything's going to go pretty much podcast pretty soon and on demand. So maybe he gets a better start, kind of jumping ahead of that. Now, let's talk about, you've been a vocal critic of the current administration's excessive spending. We are 2 years into the Biden administration, and between just the pandemic stimulus and the Inflation Reduction Act, the debt and spending is the highest it's ever been. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, who could approve of these incredibly dangerous and reckless financial policies? I mean, Biden has increased our national debt by $6 trillion in just 2 years. I don't think there's any president, at least in your and my lifetime, who's been, and we've had a lot, look, Republicans and Democrats are both responsible for our current situation, but Biden has made it so much worse. And I just was reading the latest forecast for the budget from the Congressional Budget Office, and it shows just in the last 6 months, we've borrowed $1.1 trillion in 6 months. I mean, how do you do that? How do you borrow so much money? And for what? What are we getting for this spending? And this is really what my book, Govzilla, is all about. It's about a government that is completely out of control and is devouring, is the subtitle of the book, is the government is devouring our economy and our freedoms every day. And so I think that this is a real danger to the future of the U.S. economy and the future of America being the globally dominant country in the world. You cannot borrow and spend your way to prosperity.
What about Trump spending? I know you were a former advisor to Trump. Why didn't the Republicans, when, Ryan was the speaker and Trump was the president, why didn't they do anything about the debt?
Trump did a lot of great things for our economy. I don't think there's any question that, his policies overall were extremely positive for America. But he was never, he did not want to cut government budgets, proposed some important reductions in, some of these out of control government spending programs. But overall, Trump was a big spender. And I say that as someone who admires him and admires what he did. The tax cuts were incredible, the deregulations, America become number one. But this is my point, that it's Republicans and Democrats who who spend a lot of money. And look, politicians love to play Santa Claus, and that's true of Joe Biden more than any others. But look, Bush was a big spender. So was Trump. So I can't defend them.
So do you think we'll ever get our debt under control? I mean, do you see a wave of leaders? I know you talk to a lot of people in politics. Do you see like a citizens against government waste movement, or a movement like we had in the 90s where both Democrats and Republicans wanted to reduce the debt?
I sure hope so. I mean, wake up, America. This is not a fire drill. This is incredibly dangerous, what we're going through. And so I think that we're looking at a situation now where if we don't solve this debt crisis, we're looking at a situation over the course of the next, I don't know if it's going to be 3 weeks or 3 months or 3 years, but we will have a massive financial crisis in this country if we continue to borrow like this. I mean, look at what's happened to interest rates just in the last year. The interest rate went from 0.5% to now 5% and probably higher, because the out of control spending is what triggered this massive inflation, which forced the Fed to raise interest rates, which is wreaking havoc on the economy. Look at what it's done to the mortgage market. People can't afford to take a mortgage out now because the interest rate on a mortgage has doubled in 2 years under Biden.
Yeah. Now, your book discusses how the government is this ever-growing monster feeding on our lives. The book is called Govzilla. You can buy it wherever books are sold. Has there ever been a period in history where the government actually retracted or lessened, other than that 90s period?
Yeah, look, this is a really important point that you're making. The history of the United States is that during times of crisis, whether it was the Revolutionary War, whether it was, World War I, World War II, the Great Depression, even the Cold War, we borrowed a lot of money to finance the spending. But then as soon as the crisis was over, we actually started paying down the debt. That happened in after every crisis in America. What's incredibly reckless about Biden is, we should actually be running budget surpluses right now. We shouldn't be. Why are we borrowing $1.5 to $2 trillion a year? We should be paying off the debt from COVID. Now, I think, shutting down the economy during COVID was one of the greatest mistakes in the history of the country. But, it was a crisis. COVID ended 2 years ago. We should be paying down our debt, not adding trillions and trillions of dollars to our debt. So that, we need to get back to a balanced budget. Incidentally, the one time that we actually did balance the budget in the last 50 years was under Bill Clinton, a Democrat, because we controlled government spending, we grew the economy, we cut the capital gains tax, and you have to have economic growth and you have to have budget control, and we have neither of those right now.
Although a lot of that was probably due to Newt Gingrich holding his feet to the fire.
Oh, yes,
and he had to.
For sure.
Yeah.
There's no question. In fact, I couldn't agree more, and I'm a big fan of Newt, and every time I see him, I say thank you for what you did to balance the budget. But Bill Clinton was a fiscally conservative president. There's no doubt about it. And we reduced government spending as a share of GDP under Clinton after we had a Republican Congress. So sometimes when you get divided power in Washington, you get good results. But
You're in a bad spot.
It's all income redistribution.
So we're with Steve Moore, author of the book Govzilla. How would you advise, you've advised presidents before, how would you advise that we get our government spending under control? What would be the first step? I don't hear him.
You mean to cut spending?
You
mean to cut government spending, or?
Yeah. What would be there's been the Mac Penny plan. Every department reduces its spending by, 1% a year, stuff like that. What are the initial next steps, or just stop the growth? How can we get it under control? Like if you would say, here's one policy we should do right away, boom.
Right now, I would say we ought to cut at least $1 trillion out of the spending. We need to take a chainsaw to this budget. I'll give you some examples. There's $300 billion in the budget of unspent COVID money. Well, why don't we not spend that money. The government says it's just a big piggy bank. Then there's $40 billion to hire 80,000 more IRS agents. We just need simple tax so we can save $40.
I'm having trouble hearing you. Can you repeat that? Or are we at you at a bad spot?
Can you not?
Yeah,
you can't hear me.
I it's very garbled. Yeah, I don't know. It sounds like a bad spot.
I don't know.
I can hear you then, but
Can
then
you hear me now? Or
I can hear you now, but then when
it's garbled, and it fades in and out.
I can hear you now. We can try it one more time, and then
Well, you know what?
we can look another time.
If this isn't working, I'm available anytime between 2 and 4 o'clock if you want to, where I won't be in a car and we can be doing this.
I'll let our schedule coordinate. You were sounding.
Anytime. I have a lunch at 1, but it'll be done at 2, and I have nothing going on between 2 and.
Yeah, I'll have my producer call you. It's so funny now you're coming a little better, but thank you so much, Steve Moore, author of the book Govzilla.
Okay, sorry about this. Yep.
We'll get you on soon again. Thank you. Bye. Okay, thanks, guys. We'll try to get him on again. It's just too garbled. So now back to our regularly scheduled programming on Bitcoin Clubhouse. Follow me, follow my club as well. So when we do these things, we can get people on. We get good guests from Lacey Hunt to Steve Moore to others. And thanks for joining me, and go back to Not Cafe Bitcoin.